Welcome to the Savage Worlds GM podcast, special bonus edition. We're doing a weekend show. This episode, once again, not brought to you by Roll20.net. Today, we are speaking with Eran and Aviv of Up to 4 Players and the upcoming Crystal Heart Kickstarter based on their webcomic. So if you want to follow the show, feel free to follow us. We're on social media at SWGM Podcast on Twitter and Facebook. The YouTube channel, youtube.com/Savage Worlds GM Podcast. If you like what we do, want to get behind us, throw us a buck on Patreon, patreon.com/Savage Worlds GM Podcast. And last but certainly not least, we're on iTunes as well. This episode will not go behind a paywall for those who are used to that happening. It'll go immediately to iTunes starting tomorrow morning if you want to catch the show. And last but not least, if you're watching the live stream, feel free to participate in the chat. We do bring that into the show, and we'll address those questions. So here to discuss Crystal Hearts, we have Dave, the Rules Maven Scott.
Greetings and salutations.
Dustin, the Savage Zealot Smith.
Spot of tea for you, Governor. Spot of tea.
Jeff Friedman, a.k.a. Grig, and Fanboy.
Greg the Goblin says, how?
And certainly last but not least, our guest host today, Aviv and Eran. So we're talking Crystal Hearts Kickstarter, but let's go ahead and just start with a quick introduction for those of you who may not be familiar. We'll go ahead and start with you, Eran. You just want to tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, hey, hello. My name is Eran. I am originally from Israel, just like Aviv, where we met. But now both of us live in London. I've been living I've been here for like 6 years. And as you can hear from my accent, I am completely British by now. I work in games. I started by translating D&D and Pathfinder and Exalted and other things to Hebrew. I was the translator for many of these things. And then moved to editing. I'm now the editor for City of Mist. It's a role-playing game that came like 2 years ago. And during all this time, I've been working with Aviv on webcomics, other stuff. Currently, we're doing Up to 4 Players, which is becoming more of a job and less of a hobby. Because as I said, we are going to Kickstarter. And there's going to be money involved in about 2 weeks from now. So that's happening. What do I do beyond that? Nothing. If I edit games, I translate them. I'm sort of designing them, but on the sides, and that's it. Aviv.
Hi.
Sorry.
I'm Aviv. Yeah, there was a bit of a mute there. I'm Aviv. Like Eran said, from Israel, been here 5 years in London, loving it. I'm a freelance illustrator. I do mainly character design, character art, and comics. Always loved comics ever since I watched the 90s X-Men animated series, which got me drawing because I just had to. If I couldn't be an X-Men, the next best thing is to draw them. Nowadays, I work mostly for tabletop games. I worked on Thornwatch with Penny Arcade, which was amazing because Penny Arcade was also one of the inspirations when we just started doing webcomics. And yeah, right now, mostly just doing Up to 4 Players and Crystal Heart stuff.
Excellent. So Jeff, being the resident fanboy, go ahead, take it away. Go ahead and lead that interview.
Okay. Well, let's start basically with the background. I think I know a lot of things have gone back and forth with questions for Crystal Heart, but I'm going to upset the audience a bit, and I'm going to do it my way. As far as I know, I've looked at your website. I've looked at a couple of other things that you guys did a webcomic before this one. You want to give us a little background on the history of that?
Aviv and I met 2005. Which is weird. There are people that were born then and are now probably playing Savage Worlds. Okay. And actually, it was 2004, something like that. But around 2005, I started working as the editor-in-chief of Israel's second largest video game website, VGames, And around that time, we wanted to have something else, something new on our website. So we decided to have a web comic. I'm not sure how we decided on a specific format. Probably looked around and saw Penny Arcade and Control Alt Del, etc., and decided we're not doing two guys on a sofa. We're doing something a bit different. And it was, Aviv, how long did it last? 2 years, something like that?
Something like that, just a little over 200 strips. And we did them twice a week, once a week?
I think it was twice a week, something like that. It was mostly about video games at the time, obviously. That's what the website was about. And it got some traction. This was in the days way before Facebook. And so I'm not sure how come people heard about it, because I don't remember how we learned new stuff before there was any Facebook.
I don't know how communication used to work.
I don't get so for some reason it worked. It's good. It was a good webcomic, but I'm not sure why it grabbed the crowd. But there was a crowd, was an audience for it. And then we stopped because we had other things to do, and that's basically it.
Okay.
But people remembered it. People have been remembering it for years and quoting parts from it. And that was our sign, our cue that we should do another sometime in the future. We really wanted to do it again.
Well, we're glad you did. I think I speak for everybody here. And I've not heard a single negative comment about anything you guys have done that I could find. And I look, because that's what I do.
So as a quick question, why Savage Worlds as a webcomic? Why up to 4 players?
Well, we started, Up to 4 Players started just as a project for Aviv and me to work together again. It's longer than that. It started because it was a stretch goal for my Hebrew podcast. I have a podcast about role-playing games, which has been running for 5-6 years now. I started it after I moved to London because I still wanted to say something in Hebrew about role-playing games. So I had a podcast. And we did a Kickstarter for it. Not a Kickstarter, but a local crowdfunding thing in Israel. And one of the stretch goals was Aviv and I again do a webcomic. But it wasn't about role-playing games, despite the podcast being about role-playing games, and despite Aviv and me loving role-playing games more than anything else. Because of marketing reasons. There's a bigger crowd for board games than there is for role-playing games. So we did it about board games for 2 years.
And also, I think it's also easier to write like single strip jokes about board games rather than...
I'm sure we can do single strip jokes about Savage Worlds if we really want to, for at least 50 weeks straight.
Let's do it as a stretch goal for our Kickstarter.
Sure. Let's do that.
Here first stretch goal announced.
Oh God, no.
After about 2 years, we just wanted to tell a story and we wanted to do role-playing games. And then the question, why Savage World? I will let Aviv speak because I've talked enough.
Well, when we decided to move to doing a comic about role-playing games, we definitely had to pick a system, because if we don't have rules, then we're not playing role-playing games. We're just telling a story about people telling a story. I think we narrowed it down to 2 options, which were Savage Worlds and Fate Core. And Fate is a really cool system. We actually explain it in 2-page comic on our website, up4players.com. But it is very, very freeform, and it's very storytelling based. So if we went with that one, we would kind of be telling a story about people telling a story, which is not very interesting. With Savage Worlds, there is a lot of dice rolling. There's a lot of dice exploding, with even more exciting. And that's the kind of thing that we can show in a comic and have our player characters, it's very difficult when you have characters that play characters.
Yes. The
pieces
that the play, okay.
Yeah. Have our players comment on the roles and have fun with roles, with terrible failures and amazing successes. And it is still simple enough and open enough, so we don't have to spend too much time going over boring detail about the rules. It's kind of that sweet spot of a system that's really fun to play with. Play with as in play in and also play with in a comic?
Because we had to explain it to the readers. We knew that we're not going to, well, I love Savage Worlds, but it's not the biggest audience in the world. And webcomic is even a smaller niche. And a webcomic about Savage Worlds is like the tiniest of niches. So we had to do something that will hopefully reach out to role players in general, hopefully even more to just people that enjoy fun, good storytelling. And so we have to explain the system. So Savage Worlds is really easy to explain. That's a big plus.
Well, I mean, to that point, we see now you guys have become the official comic of Savage Worlds, and Pinnacle's even gone so far as to put that couple-page comic you did explaining Savage Worlds up as, here's an introduction to Savage Worlds right on their website. And I think that at least allowed the Savage community to see you guys weren't just lip service saying that it was Savage Worlds. You weren't saying, well, they roll some dice and this exciting thing happens and move on into the comic. No, you were actually showing actual Savage Worlds in play. So I think there was at least some concern with myself when Jeff came to me early on. I think it was the second comic you guys had released for Crystal Hearts. He goes, have you seen this? They're doing Savage Worlds. And I'm like, yeah, they're doing Savage the Worlds the way Control-Alt-Delete or Penny Arcade does video games, which is, it's tangentially connected, but it's really their story in that world. But no, taking a look at it, you guys actually deliver on the Savage Worlds aspect of that. Which is an interesting thing. How much have you found that that's made it difficult at times to tell the story you're going to tell, but have to keep it rooted in the rules of a game that you're doing character inception for?
It made it way easier because I know what happens around the table when this and this happens. I've played that. And I know what happens when you try something and then the enemy gets with a D12, the D12 that explodes twice, and you had your D4 -2 or something, and you know that feeling. I know that feeling. It's really easy to make a story about something that I know so intimately well, which is, by the way, why we started playing a lot of Savage Worlds, of course, during the past few years, because 50 Fathoms, by the way, because we can't we have to love the system in order for them to love the system, and you can't. It's like we love the world. We really love the world that we created. I mean, obviously, and we love the characters, but the system is like the third player in this triangle of
love,
narrative, love.
It's a very good setting, by the way. It's very like the idea of the power coming from the heart, like literally having to take out a heart in order to get the ability to do these things. I was like drawn in by how interesting that is in terms of concept. And so you've got like this really sort of, I guess you could say, mature aspect of it, but then juxtapose that with the art and the fact that the people, the human players are playing in the setting that is, I love how the art kind of like grasps the fact that it's the player's concept of the world, not necessarily the actual situation that it is.
There's no actual situation. It's all the imagination. We show things that are in the world, but there's no actual in world. And because I don't know if the people listening know, but in role-playing games, there's no actual world. It's all in the imagination. So it's the same thing here. And again, in order to stay true to the role-playingness of the thing, yeah, we had to.
And I personally really like it because it means that if I make a continuity error, I can just blame it on the people's imaginations.
It becomes a story point.
Yes.
It's something that happens around the table.
Yeah, the GM explained it a certain way. We saw it kind of differently, and now it all collides together.
Yes.
Very easy.
You guys pull it off really well in the comic itself. I mean, I have to say, like I said, I started with up to 4 players. The second week you were actually active, and I'll be honest, I cannot tell you where I found your comic from. I was linked to it from someone else that I was looking at. Maybe it might have been another webcomic that said you should check this out or whatever. I'm not sure. But I have been there straight through. Like David said, when you guys started doing the Savage Worlds specific comic, I went straight to him to see if he'd seen this because at the time, I'm not a huge Savage Worlds player these days. I don't play anything that much anymore outside of computer games. I love world building. I do a lot of that in my free time, but I don't have the time that often to sit down and actually play in games. So I learned more about how to play Savage Worlds from Crystal Hearts than I have sitting down listening to Dave to explain rules to me. Which either says your comic is absolutely amazing or he is an incredibly lousy teacher. I don't know. I know what he'd say, but
for those of you that are new, Dave is the rules maven, Scott, so that should tell you something.
Knowing the rules and explaining them to others are two different things.
I completely agree. Completely agree. Two different skills.
But it's one of the things that your comic did so well. And before Peg came out and said, like, yeah, this is like kind of the official comic of Savage Worlds, it was shared around the community so much. Everyone was talking about that comic, and everyone was linking to your site to say, no, here's how the rules go. Look at this is done like a page. We can print these out and take it to a con and show people, which, by the way, you might want to actually do that, bind it up and sell them at conventions or sell them on Drive-Thru-RPG as just the Savage Worlds primer would probably be a good distribution point for you guys. Oh, I see he's writing it down.
Reaching for a notebook.
There you go. Oh, there you go. Yeah. So even better. There it is, folks. But absolutely. And if people who don't know about it, please, it's on Drive-Thru-RPG. You can find them there, and you can find them on the website. I believe you guys have links to them on your website, correct?
Yep. On Drive-Thru-RPG, it's pay what you want. On our website is just download the PDF or JPEG, and we only uploaded it to Drive-Thru-RPG 2 weeks ago, along with the starter sets, and people paid. Apparently, they wanted to pay.
It's one of the nice things about the Savage Worlds community is even free things. People will pay for things they think are worth it.
Yes,
I'm willing to bet your Kickstarter is going to show that really well. I know that I think everyone here is backing your Kickstarter when it comes out. I know I am.
Thank you.
What's the date on that Kickstarter for the audience so that they can go ahead and know that?
November 20.
All right.
November 20, Europe time. I don't know what date it is in the US.
America loves its daylight savings time, so it's going to be November 21st for us.
Well, I'm sure it's going to be advertised all over.
Yeah, for sure.
Everything else.
Since we started talking about the Kickstarter, I did want to ask, with where your Kickstarter is kind of landing, is it going to be fully converted to the new Suede version? And if so, how much of a kick in the teeth was it to get all the way up to releasing kind of a test drive version and then have the new version come out between that and your Kickstarter?
Well. We of course knew about. I'm in the group of. Well, I'm a licensee. We're a licensee, an ace of Savage Worlds. We didn't ask to become one. They turned to us and just offered it, which was brilliant and amazing, and shows you how Peg think about the community. I think they saw that
That's rare.
I don't know any.
That is not something that Peg does very often.
Yeah, we're licensees as well. We're licensees as well, and I'm going to tell you, we had a much harder time getting licensing than that, and that was after multiple attempts.
I think they recognize something that will be useful for them. A comics that explains Savage Worlds in a fun, interesting, colorful way that draws the eyes is obviously useful, and they went on full on this, and we of course are utterly thankful. So because we're aces like you guys, and I think Jared, I saw you posting in the secret group of licensees, and we knew about their Kickstarter, Peg's Kickstarter, months in advance, and we decided on our own to start 5 days after theirs will end, because I don't want to compete with Pinnacle. So we'll start after theirs. And we knew that the new thing is coming. Aviv was adamant about the starter set, releasing the starter set. And I think that she was completely right because of two things. First, it shows what we are aiming for, even if it uses the previous edition, and the book is going to be completely in the new edition, completely adventure. We'll actually revise the starter set after the new edition is out there, after people get the PDFs and stuff. We'll revise the starter set to the new edition as well.
Yeah, you guys were announced as one of the first few jump starts with was actually that revision of your starter set.
It's about the starter set. The second thing that was really important about it is we really want, maybe you got the gist by now, more people to play role-playing games. And so we are trying to increase our accessibility as much as we can. And a free starter set with the free test-derived rules, specifically Lankmar, the new one will be there's probably going to be a new test drive rule edition after the adventure edition, obviously. The new one will refer to that. You can just give it to someone and then they can play. And that's brilliant, we think. So it must be free, it must be simple, it must be colorful, high production values, it must look good, so people would think, this is worth my time testing it out. And it must be before the Kickstarter, so in the current edition.
Yeah, we followed the example of City of Mist.
Yes.
Amit, the creator, did a beautiful starter set before the Kickstarter hit, and it grabbed people. It looked amazing. It was, everything you needed to know was there. So people played it, and then they wanted to play more. And then the Kickstarter came. And that's a really good model that I hope we manage to grab onto.
It only cost us like a month of our life or something to create a thing, or 3 or something like that.
I've heard this from other publishers. Regarding the pay what you want model on drive-thru, that they'll look at a lot of numbers, and initially they'll see a lot of people just downloading it at 0, and then the same people coming back after they've had a chance and buying it at a higher price.
We're going to, the starter set is forever going to be completely free, not pay what you want, I think. But I feel comfortable with putting a pay what you want tag on a thing that you can download from our website for free. If you want to give us money, if you think we deserve some money, here's your opportunity to do so, for example.
Well, to a certain extent, it's almost the modern version of the old tip jar. It's that if what I did for you seems worth your money, you have the freedom to do it, but that's not what you're doing it for. You guys are doing this because you have a love for the product. You have a love for the gaming. You want to spread that. And if people want to reward you for that, you're open to it. You're not gonna obviously turn them away. No, I don't want your money. But at the same time,
we could have opened a coffee. A lot of creators have coffee, but which is again for one-time things. But instead, we actually opened a Patreon. It's been going for like 2 or maybe 3 years now, and we don't offer anything on the Patreon. Basically nothing. Sometimes once in 3 months, Aviv will show a behind-the-scene thing. During last year, I posted a new article about Savage Worlds with some new things, new stats for new things for patrons only, but that will become part of the Kickstarter soon, so everyone will see it. So patrons don't really get a lot, and yet there are a lot of patrons because they want to thank us with money, and we thank them for thanking us with money.
Yeah, for sure.
We've had the same experience with ours. Is the patrons don't really get anything they weren't getting before we put it out there. Obviously the show comes out on basically the same cadence it used to, but now it's at least started to cover things like our hosting expenses.
Exactly.
And all that. Jared's no longer paying for the hobby that is his love of Savage Worlds.
Exactly. Yes.
Well, and also too, I think it's great to have free versions of things, also pay what you want kind of model, especially as an introductory to a setting or a product. More than anything else, it like you said, if your goal is to spread role playing awareness as a hobby, it keeps somebody who may be restricted from that from getting to the content.
Yes.
I think right now we've got like a web comic going, but I could really see up to 4 players or Crystal Heart working its way into a full-on like animated series. I mean, it's really got interesting concepts and it's got a unique style and flavor to it. So,
I mean, if you find anyone else to animate it, we're very happy, you know, with the idea. Right now, 1 page a week.
Throw it out into the universe, and maybe
Yeah.
somebody is gonna it's gonna get in that ear and just dig in and be like, "Yeah, that's a good idea."
You never know. I mean, there's people who do that kind of stuff. You don't be surprised if somebody reaches out to you after these.
No, I will be surprised. I will be surprised.
I think the timing that you guys came in with Crystal Heart is probably one of the best things right now for getting the word out. For one, because Suede is getting so much traffic, your product is your introduction set is pretty much the last thing coming out before the new edition. So anyone looking at the Savage Worlds, your product's going to hit top of the lines. You know, this is the newest thing. And then as soon as the Kickstarter is over, you're launching the first official product outside of official licensed PEG, outside of things going straight out of PEG themselves. So you are the forerunners.
I was wondering about that. I kind of wanted to say we're the first Kickstarter for Adventure Edition, but I wasn't completely sure it's true. Maybe someone will start a Kickstarter 2 days before us.
It's possible, but I think
possible.
From everything we've seen, you are the first product.
Yeah, I was going to say, as far as I know, the licensees I've talked to are all going to take a bit more time before they're ready to release anything because they're putting all their efforts right now into the jump starts and
yes.
that they're ready to convert and whatnot. And I think, like most of us, they're all dug deep into the current version of the rules that's been released to licensees that, not only are they trying to convert, but they're trying to learn the new game because there's a design aspect to this that I wanted to speak to with you guys as well. Is there's something about you have to know the game system well enough to design within it. And that's only when you start getting into the rule side. Like, obviously, I'm sure Crystal Hearts would have the exact same story if you were telling that over top of, say, Pathfinder, or like you said, you were considering Fate Core. Or
I don't think so. I think the story is really. I think the fact that we're using Savage Worlds has influenced the story immensely, actually.
Yeah. Okay.
It influenced the way crystals work, technically, immensely.
But that's what I'm saying. Beyond just the aspect of the mechanics of how they go about it, and obviously some of your story is telling that mechanics side. I think the world could exist regardless of what setting you had it on, but you had to take the time to actually dig in and learn Savage Worlds to be able to then incorporate those mechanics into what you're doing, and then also obviously to deliver a product that speaks so much to savages. I think that's one of those things I've noticed is you'll occasionally get a product that comes out from a licensee that doesn't really speak to Savage Worlds. It's sure they've written up a version of it for it, but you can kind of tell it was written to be run with something else or written with another game system beneath it. Crystal Hearts definitely seems like it is very much rooted in Savage Worlds, despite the fact you could have placed it over top of like Fate and told predominantly the same story.
Fate is the obvious candidate because in Fate you just say, well, this crystal is an aspect. It's this aspect, these two aspects, whatever. And then, okay, you've basically done it in Fate. In Savage Worlds is obviously trickier, but we can't really do it in Pathfinder or any class-based system because in a way the crystals are classes. Without a crystal, you are a person. And with the crystal, you have a specific set of powers. And now you have a role in the party. You're the healer, you're the supporter, or whatever. So in a way, yes, the things that you said, I agree with them.
Well, I think what Dave's trying to communicate too is a lot of the current licensees are heads down in the new edition changes, making sure that they don't release a product that that telegraphs to the community of savages out there, oh, poser. And I think what Dave was saying is there's this kind of poser mentality, like, okay, well, we've got this game system, we've got this game called blah blah blah, and oh, here's the Savage Worlds edition that's also available in D20, and it's like, oh no, we're not interested. You designed that for D20. I can tell by reading you're not really a savage, so No, thank you.
To a certain extent, that is kind of what I'm saying. The idea that you guys have taken the time to learn the system so that you could mix that in with every aspect of what you're doing, and you're going to be the first ones out the gate because it's so tightly wound already. You're in kind of the catbird seat to be able to move forward with what they've changed within the system itself.
It's actually in the comic. It's one of the things that you see the dice rolls, like you see what the result is. And because of that, it's this sort of method of conveying whether or not it worked. Like in a lot of places, like you'll see like the art represents it, but like you have the ability to see, okay, I'm going to try this. And then when you see what the roll is, you're like, it did it.
The artwork, though, I have to kind of interject this here because when I look at Crystal Hearts, obviously outside of just the starter set, what most people are going to see is the webcomic. That's the number one experience people have with the setting since it's not out yet. The story is really well written. The art obviously fits directly into the story. So I'm actually gonna throw this one over towards Aviv because you are the artist.
Yeah.
I know that I believe you help out Eran with some of the artwork, but it's primarily Aviv.
No, not. I don't help in any way with the artwork.
It's just all right.
I at most help with the storyboarding. That is what happens in each panel and how many panels we have, etc.
Okay,
but
so you both storyboarded that.
We both storyboard. I come with the dialogue and general ideas. We then turn it into an actual issue. I then sort of create scripts per page. Aviv transform them into finalized scripts and then inking. And then I call it inking. Maybe it's penciling. I'm not the artist. And then finally a colored edition, and it's up on the website. 2 weeks later.
How hard is it for you to actually put the art to fit the story? Because that's something that I've heard other people comment on, is how well that the art just fits the story. We're not just seeing dice rolls and hearing a GM describe what happens. We're watching the characters act out their parts. We're watching them interact with each other. We're seeing the small details, even just a character doesn't just roll their eyes. We're going to look and see the character make this sarcastic face at the other character because she can't believe what's happening. Or the player's confused and the character looks confused. And then we have those times where the player and the character are kind of written in the same space where we can see the outlines, which is amazing because it tells the story so well. But how difficult is it for you to actually really put that from here's the script to here's what it looks like, and how long does that really take you to do all this?
So Eran and I have worked together for years on doing comics and doing webcomics. So our process together is kind of so refined at this point that when he writes something, I think we both imagine it kind of the same way. So we're in the same wavelength. So there's not a lot of effort in translating what he's seeing when he's coming up with a story into how it's going to look on paper or on digital canvas. As for expressions and poses and actually drawing things to make them come alive, that's my passion. That's what I love to do. Character art is what I live for, basically. Like I struggle with backgrounds a little bit and stuff like that, but when I have to draw characters, that's fun. Making expressions that are extreme, so they're humoristic, but not too crazy, and making the real life players work with the fantasy characters. That's the joy of comics for me. It is definitely a lot of work, and it's been 20-something years of practice to get to this point. But it's great fun. And the point that you made about the kind of overlay of role-playing character on top of the players, that's something we came up with our in our original up to 4 players strips. Where they had a short arc of playing a role-playing game. And with only like 3 or 4 panels for each joke, it was really important to show that overlay of when is it the player talking and when is it their character talking. So we had to come up with this trick of placing the line art of an actual role-playing character on top of our real-life players. And it's worked, and people really responded to that and understood it immediately, which is great because we weren't sure that it's going to communicate properly.
I've heard people basically say this is something they want to see more of. I think we're going to see that in other future projects and products as well from other companies. That speaks to a lot of people. I've seen those comments where people are like, "Well, it's amazing, and it conserves space as well." In the thing, you don't have to flip between. Okay, here's the player. Now we're going to jump over and have the character saying the exact same thing. We get to actually see, oh, well, this is a player who doesn't understand something, and this is a character who doesn't understand something, and this is the player and the character in total agreement here. We're now sinking into that persona, which, I mean, all the really serious role players totally get that you're sitting at the table, and I can turn around and I can make a joke to Dave at the table, and then turn around and be completely a different person at the table because now I am my character. And I think that just captures it so well that now you see this is that character. And the fact that you go the extra step on that is something that I've also noticed. A lot of people I've seen where they want to show this is the same character in role play. It's the exact same character, but we've put a hat on them, or we've just given them a shirt. And you have actual different character designs. You can see the original character in your character design, but it's not the same character that just put on a funny hat. They are actually different, slightly different models. Maybe the cheeks are a little different, or for one of your characters, the skin tone is completely different. Everything else, and it really does show that this is the player, and I'm playing a completely different character. This isn't just me. And I
mean. That's why we role play. I mean, I like myself. I like how I look, but I don't necessarily want to play that when I step into a fantasy world. I want to be a blue tiefling or a warrior Indian princess or whatever. And so there's literally no reason why our made-up players would play someone who looks exactly like them, just has slightly different color hair or something. But we have definitely designed their characters. It's very difficult referring to characters in that sense.
You can refer to them as players and characters if you want.
We all understand. Okay, so we have players and we have characters. We've definitely designed their characters to convey the personality of the player behind, but be someone completely different. And you can actually, the very first or the second page of Crystal Heart actually shows one of those characters being created with Guy's character, Mac.
Yep.
He wasn't really super tight on the details of how Mac is going to look. So we just started with this kind of white mannequin with no details. It kind of looks like Guy in a general sense.
The same head shape, I think.
Yeah, the same general shape of a person. But then as he and Nadav, the GM, add details to the background of this character, to his personality, then the actual look of the character is formed on top of that. And then also a rocket launcher, but then maybe not.
I think your first page of Crystal Heart from the webcomic, where we've got the GM and then you've got the characters and players lined up together. I think that just absolutely speaks volumes of it, because we can see it. I'm looking at it right now on the screen, and you can totally see this character is this player, but they're not the same person. They are distinctly. There's little details. You know, the sizes are different of the characters. The head shapes are slightly different, but you can still see. Well, the eyes are kind of similar on most of them. The basic face shapes remain consistent, but not exact. You know, I can tell this character is this player from looking at this, even though if I were to take them out of the picture you did and just put them into 6 different index cards, these are 6 completely different characters. but they're not. They're 3 characters in different situations. And I think that's one of the things that absolutely grabs me. When I first started reading it, when you switched from 4 players to Crystal Heart, that was one of the things that absolutely grabbed me. And I will link that if other people want to see it. You don't want to have to search for it. I'll link it in chat here.
We almost had completely different characters for the players. Completely different, because we played this campaign. We actually played it, not in Savage Worlds. It was in 2005 or something like that. It was before Savage World was a thing. We played it in Big Eyes, Small Mouth, which is an anime game that is long gone. And it was almost everything about the game was different. It was the first iteration. We are currently in like the 3rd or 4th iteration of the setting. Many things changed. There was a desert with demons to the south. Don't ask. And then we had 4 characters for our 4 players, the characters they created. And when we came to create the new comic, it was obvious to us that we want to take some of those characters that we remember well and use them. So we ask ourselves which of our players, because we keep the same players from the previous version of the comic from up to 4 players, the same 4 people, what are they going to play? Which of these characters that we created 10 years ago they are going to play? And it was very bad. It was very, very bad. But then my wife, my brilliant wife, came up with an idea and said, you should create these like the players would create characters for Savage Worlds and specifically for this setting. So you start with motivation. Why would someone become an agent of sin? And we came up with 3 different motivations and we gave them to the 3 players, and each player created a character based on a different motivation. And then everything else just came up from that, I think.
So I guess one of the questions that this has to spark for me that's completely outside the RPG world and more to do specifically with the comic is, and we've seen it here in the conversation where you and Aviv both have had trouble talking characters because you're trying to separate the player that is also a character in the comic book from the character that's a character in the comic book and in the game. And it sounds like, to at least some extent, when you tried to have this based on people who you had actually played games with in the past, it didn't really work out as well for you. So how much of a juxtaposition have you had to do with your own mind just to be able to keep the character and the player character separate from each other in personality and in little quirks so that you can differentiate them as 2 separate characters? So they aren't just the paper model that's being laid in place. Because, I mean, it certainly comes through in the comic, but how much work has that been, I guess?
We have the personalities for our 4 players. We had them since basically the beginning of... That's one of the first things we decided on when we created the comics, when we started the comics, because we had to have 4 basic people to work with, to work jokes off. So we had basic personalities for them. After several years with them, I know them by heart. I can tell what each of them would do in each situation. And what is going on here is when I am in the middle of writing a script and I ask myself, who would now do something and what would they do? I never think about what a character would do. I think about what the player would do. What the player around the table would do at that moment and want their character to do in the game. And that's because it's super important. The characters don't exist. Only the players exist. When we see the characters in play, we see what the players want to do. So while they seem different, the characters are completely the players that they play them. The short one, Rafaela, played by Lily. I don't want to say that in every game she will always play the same sort of character, but she sort of does. And we'll sing Rafaela, but what we'll sing is Lily being more even exaggerating more her own liliness. And what we see with Guy is his sort of inability to decide on how to play his character. And so Mac tends to be kind of bland and technical oriented because he knows the rules. Guy knows the rules, and he likes to roll things to know stuff and use the rules in constructive ways. So that's what Mech is mostly about, and etc. etc. So that's NPCs are probably the only thing that I never ask myself, what would the GM do? No, it's an NPC. It's someone in the world that's, and the GM is perfect. the GM is perfect. He can portray every NPC as perfectly as we want because we see them in the world and we never need to hear him say speak for any of them. We only read them, so we can imagine him doing amazing voices we don't know. So that works well for me.
So we're coming close to the end of the hour, so I just want to ask real quickly, give me I don't want to say elevator pitch, but what is Crystal Hearts? What makes it a unique setting for Savage Worlds?
I have the elevator pitch that we give to, well, we just came back from Comic-Con, London Comic-Con a week ago. And when we want to grab someone who's just like passing by, we usually go something like, it's about these 4 players role-playing in a world of their own making, where everyone's heart is actually literally made of stone. And there are special agents, well, player characters, that can replace that stone with crystals that they find lying about in the world. And these crystals give them both special powers, amazing powers, and change their personality in all kinds of quirky ways. Because it's fun to play.
Yes, that are fun to play. Yes. That's the basic pitch, yeah.
So if you had to explain Crystal Hearts in terms of genre for the game the characters are playing,
I think it's superheroes meets fantasy, pulp fantasy.
In a way, because everything in Savage Worlds is pulp fantasy, but also, I mean, the fact that they are working for an organization is a big part of the game. We are going to use a variation on the wealth system from the new Adventure Edition. It's called Requisition, and you don't have money. You requisition things from the organization. You have a code of conduct you have to work with, which is a vow you technically take. And it's a big thing. As of yet, I don't know how to put that in a genre. I don't know what to say. I would go with superhero fantasy thing, despite this being maybe a description of the setting and not a genre of the game.
It kind of makes me wonder something. Have you guys considered, maybe after Crystal Heart, have you ever thought about doing superheroes?
I think it's safe to say that whatever we'll ever do in the future, and we have thoughts about things beyond Crystal Heart, we don't see Crystal Heart as a product line. We see it as a thing, and then we'll want to do a different thing. Maybe not in Savage Worlds, but maybe we don't know. Whatever it is, it will have some superpowers. We really like superpowers. It's awesome.
I guess to a certain extent, it does something that is, to me at least, quintessentially Savage Worlds, in that it does the mashup really well. When Jared asks you to define the genre, you're going, well, it's fantasy and it's pulp and it's supers, and oh, by the way, we threw in some Agents of Oblivion because you're technically working for this shadow organization. Yes. And you have to requisition gear, and it's like you're doing what a lot of Savages do, which is I'm just gonna take out these like 5 setting books, harvest from them that all make sense to me, and then I'm gonna throw it on the table for what my players want to do. And it does something that is quintessentially Savage, and that is it's something, the long running joke was Savage Worlds is always something plus horror. You guys have just said it's something plus something else,
yes,
and done the mashup part of it really, really well. And I think that's what makes it a perfect fit in Savage Worlds, at least to me.
Thank you. You should see the cover for the book. Aviv finished it 2 days ago. It's the most Savage World things I've seen, I think. I can imagine that combat scene. I know what they are currently doing, what they are rolling for. It looks amazing.
I can't wait to see it once you guys launch the Kickstarter. I'm not even gonna try and sneak a peek at that. But I guess since we're wrapping it up, I guess my final question then would really be, it's a pure Crystal Heart question. It's pitched to both of you. What is Crystal Heart mean to you as the creators? Now, everyone who reads it's going to have their own opinion of what it is and how they like it and everything else. But as the creators, what is Crystal Heart to you?
Aviv, do you want to take it first?
I don't have a
okay, then I
solid
have
answer.
A thing. So think about it. I think I have a sort of an action. First, I see it as a way to convey my worldview regarding mental illnesses. I know that's weird, but truly. And I see it as an opportunity to tell a grand story. It's unclear yet what the story is for the readers. I think many readers would assume that there's just like issues. You go through, there's an adventure, then there's the next adventure, etc. But there's actually a campaign. They are playing a campaign. And by the end of this one, by the start of the next one, you're going to see the thing, which will raise a lot of questions, the sort of thing that would happen in a campaign about now. The campaign is going to start around now, in a way. And I see it as an opportunity to tell a grand story, something that I've been dreaming of for years. And it requires people to like the thing you're doing in order to be willing to stay along for the entire ride. And the thing with mental illness is all crystals give you, well, not exactly an illness, but a hindrance, technically. All crystals give you a hindrance. Many of them are mental hindrances, and they affect your way of thinking, but they are not you. It's something that came from outside. It's a crystal that you plant into yourself, and now you behave differently. But when you replace it with a different crystal, you'll behave again differently. You will never again be able not to behave differently, because from now on, you can't live without a crystal. So you will, and I think new players do not realize this. They don't realize they now belong to an organization that owns them, owns the crystal that they will have to use from now on, and will never again be themselves. And I like it because, first of all, there's something tragic about this. But second of all, mental illness is not us. I went through mini depression sort of things. I'm on antidepressants these days. I'm seeing a shrink, and I think that these things are way, way more taboo than they should be in our society. They are important. If you have anxiety issues or whatever, there are solutions for that. And my great realization was, this depression is not me. It's not necessarily a part of me. It's like a broken leg. Oh no, I will never heal this broken leg. This broken leg is part of me. I now am a person with a broken leg. No, you want to get rid of the breakage in your leg. You want to have a whole leg. And you can exist without, not all mental illnesses, but a lot of us can be a lot better, I think, better off. And I think there's some of that in the concept of Crystal Heart that maybe we can like push into the audience in a way.
I actually work in mental health, so I know what you're saying about like the broken leg. A lot of the people that I've worked with over the years, they think, okay, well, I'm going to take this medicine and it's going to instantly fix me. And I have to work with them, say, no, this is a process. This is just, you have to like cultivate this, and you have to like consider what's going on inside of you and what is growing from your own mentality. Crystals also grow. I don't know if that's in the story, but the idea of the difference between stone and crystal is crystals actually branch out, whereas stones break down. So I can see the metaphor of what you're going with there.
There's a thing happening in the future that is relevant to what you just said.
Dustin, stop giving away spoilers.
I'm not giving away spoilers. I'm just magic.
The best part is he doesn't know. So
how about you, Aviv?
For me, I kind of go week to week, drawing page after page. And then, every once in a while, Eran comes with this really deep thought about Crystal Heart, about the setting, about the Sin organization, stuff that I haven't thought about, that I haven't considered, that are hitting me like really hard. And it's like, oh shit, this is clever stuff. This is really good. And I'm just really excited to be along for this ride, to just like be part of this journey, to hear about this world and to discover stuff about this world, and also, you know, be actually part of it. Like Eran does most of the writing and Eran does most of the world building, but from the fact that I draw these guys and I draw the 5 lands that they're navigating, and the flying castle where Sin headquarters are in, this also brings details and fleshes out things in the story, in the world, and it's really cool to be part of that journey, part of that creation. Yeah, and also it's just really fun to do a project with Eran again, because we've worked on separate things along our our years-long friendship, and it's always fun to have that going on, just working on something creative and exciting.
You know what else is really important? The fact that we're doing a webcomic every week, there's a new comic, means that, first of all, we always have something that we work on, but second of all, we always get feedback on a weekly basis, and that's so important. Feedback is so you're creators, you have a podcast, you know this. Feedback keeps us going, and that's the fact that's why we will make a webcomic and not just like an issue. Create 32 pages and here's the issue. I have no idea how people do that.
We did that once. It did not continue.
Work. No,
yeah, I think there's something to be said about kind of that boots in the mud style of creation, where every day you're facing the problems that last week caused, and you're trying to put out the fires where a misstep that upset a fan or something of that nature. There's something different about that than working in seclusion and then dropping the whole product on your fans when you might lose the fan in the first 2 pages because you didn't ever get that feedback. Yes. And I think there's definitely a large benefit to that. So in the vein of asking the big questions, I know Jared's got his in and now Jeff has. My question's more for Aviv here. We hear a lot these days about how the industry itself, maybe less so at the table, but even that seems to be contentious in the gender balance and things of that nature. What's been your experience, especially working with Pinnacle, who I know has Jody as kind of the forerunner over there, that they really do empower the female creators in the space. What's that been like for you coming forward? Because I know with Eran, you've got a great partner you've had for years, but coming into this space where now you're not just doing the art and the comics, but now you're actually creating an RPG. Are you finding that you're getting the support you were looking for? Have they been as helpful as you expected them to be?
They've been amazing. I mean, most of the communication we have with them is Eran, because I'm not as an expert in this world of role-playing games and of game design as Eran is. But
I
every
do a lot
time
of the RPG things. Aviv does a lot of the production part of our work. For example,
prints and graphic design and stuff like that.
Yes.
But every time we approach Jody and Shane and everyone there via email, they've been wonderful. I've never felt any kind of, I don't know, they're addressing Eran because he's a dude and they're not really talking to me because I'm a lady or something. None of that. I'm a lady. Yes. So yeah, and the fact that we have Jody to talk with, it's like, yeah, here's a cool woman who's supporting us with what we do, and awesome to talk to her. And apart from working with Pinnacle, I'm so grateful for everyone that I got to play with, that I've not run into any kind of gatekeeping or any kind of toxic behavior that I keep hearing about. And it's devastating to me that women do run into that, and that young women especially run into that, because what an amazing hobby to be part of. And why would you not want everyone to be part of it, regardless of gender, regardless of anything? Actually, we Eran and I scheduled a bunch of interviews and streamed games and stuff to support the Kickstarter, and it's really important to me to be part of each and every one. Sometimes I don't have a lot to add to the role-playing discussion, to the game design discussion, but I still want to be here to have a female voice in a podcast that, you know, is very often very much male-dominated, because that's how the industry has been so far. And we're seeing a change. We're very much seeing a change, and probably have a lot of the streaming games to thank for that, or you know, they lead that. But yeah, I really hope that we see more of, you know, women, LGBTQ, everyone that's been kind of ostracized from this hobby.
I really think we've actually been pretty welcoming to women and LGBTQ. I think that really it comes down to there was this stigma behind it. Just the fact that, you know, there was a certain group of people that really like to play, but that group of people has always been welcoming. Like if you go back to Gygax himself, his whole family, like his daughters were in the very first game. They created part of the Pantheon. I think like part of it is saying, hey, we don't bite. We're not bad people. Come and play with us.
For sure. And a lot of people don't bite. Some do. And I hope they get like sided away from
we don't like them. We don't want them.
Yeah,
just
exactly.
come and play. they can go play another system.
Well, and to a certain extent, the reason I wanted to ask Aviv this is because I know Peg is amazing in that regard, especially with Jody there at the helm. And I think that as much as we have to spotlight the toxic behavior, I think equally we have to spotlight moments like this where we have a woman who has an equal voice in creating it, who's working with a company that's, you know, equally supporting her role in it. We have to spotlight that too, so we don't have just this doom and gloom that makes it feel like to those young female creators that are just coming into the hobby, like it's not just that one idiot or asshole they dealt with at the game store, but the whole hobby's against them. And I want to make sure we spotlight equally that get past that one asshole and join the rest of the hobby where people are a lot more open and great. And I'm glad to hear that that's the experience you've had. It kind of comes across just with the way you've been interacting with Eran, but I wanted to spotlight that for a little bit because I know Peg is a great company. You guys have really had a great partnership with them so far.
Yeah,
and that guy's a jerk to everybody. Don't. He's really a jerk to everybody.
I mean, throw me under the bus, but
Dave, you and your Warhammer obsession, let it go.
I mean, you guys have been great with us here today. So, I mean, I'm sure I speak for everybody when I was saying thank you for taking the time out of your schedules to come on with us and to share your experiences and everything. And Aviv, you did contribute quite a bit to the discussion. I get it, you know, that you do a little quiet. I do the same thing the few times I've been on the podcast. I'm not a regular host. I'm a very irregular host here. I don't show up very often to be a regular, but I tend to speak when I have something to say, and otherwise I tend to not bother. And that's what you've done here is that Eran has given us the answer. You don't have to sit there and just nod your head and smile. You're content to let him say what he needs to say. And if you agree, you're good. And when you had to say something, you did. And by the same token, Eran, I really appreciate the fact that you went all out to describe the process to us here, the ideas behind it, the thoughts on mental health in terms of the game. I had not even considered that. And I struggle with mental health every day. I am actually disabled for mental instability. So seeing Crystal Heart in that light just makes me want to purchase it that much more at this point now. It is an amazing process that you went through, both of you, honestly. And thank you so much for sharing this amazing world with not just us, but the whole community. And if this is something you guys did just so you could work together, I'm looking forward to seeing what you come up with next.
we'll have to wait and see. But until then, November 20.
And thank you guys so much for having us on, especially doing this a bonus episode. That's really awesome.
Yeah, we actually appreciate you guys reaching out. I mean, and enduring that long chain of emails to get us here.
Yeah, it was a process for all of us, I think, but it was well worth it. I'm sure the community is going to agree with us on that. And you guys are welcome back at any. I think I speak for everybody when I say you guys are welcome back at any time. If you'd like to do another one after your Kickstarter, if you want to speak out to the world about anything else, or just clarify things you might have that people may have commented on during it. I hope you'll think of us. I know there's plenty of podcasts out there who would love to have you back too. But I'm hoping you keep a good thought about us here.
We've done live plays in the past. I don't know. Maybe that would be fun if we could all find time for that or coordinate schedules.
Coordinate schedules was the key word here.
Yeah.
All right, so
working in 3 time zones, folks.
Like a Saturday night with you guys.
Yeah. So in wrapping it up real quick, Eran, Aviv, if you want to blurb out, pimp out the URLs, the dates again one more time before we close it down.
Our main URL is up24players.com/crystalheart. During the Kickstarter, it will point there. Currently, it's pointing to the starter set, which you can download. You can also find the starter set on DriveThruRPG if you search for Crystal Heart. It's free either way.
You can find us on Twitter or Facebook. Just look for up24players and we're there.
Yep.
And we're happy to chat if anyone has any questions or just want to talk to us.
We have personal websites for professional things. Mine is eranaviram.me. Good luck with finding out how to write it. Yes. And avivo.com. I think that's it. I have a podcast, but I don't feel like I should promote a podcast on another podcast. This is not podcast etiquette. So.
By all means.
No, there's no etiquette here. You got the wrong podcast. By all means,
just throw whatever, man. We might as well be a commercial at this point.
Specifically to pimp your. So pimp all of them.
Okay, I have a donut shop. No, I wish I had one. It's called On the Shoulders of Dwarves, and it's at dwarfcast.net, and that's basically it, I think.
And all of your links are also at your website under, I believe, under the About section, about us.
Yep.
On the Crystal, on up24players.com.
Yeah.
So anybody
we're also available on Twitter and Facebook as ourselves, and we respond in both of them quite a lot.
And your Discord as well. You do have
yes, I don't know how to give a link for Discord because all of the join links are always this weird thing. There's a link somewhere for the Discord, I'm sure.
I'll link under the description. We'll post this up to it, so don't worry about it. We'll go ahead and help you.
Cool.
All right. So until next time, this is Jared Savage Daddy Gunning for Jeff, Eran, Dustin, Dave, and Aviv saying keep rolling and stay savage.